Okay, so the next clip is it's about the Family Law Court. Now, the New South Wales Police, their associates, prison staff, um, council staff, local court, district court, Supreme Court, and High Court. They're all the bank. So the Family Law Court, family means familiaris, and court means a slave trading house connected to the underworld. It comes from atrium, which comes from atri, which means a dark slave trading house connected to the underworld. You can find this in William Whitaker's words on the Notre Dame University, which is one of the top 10 universities on the planet. And William Whitaker's words is the best translator. You can even type in William Whitaker's words on Google and it comes up with a Latin English translator. Now, someone asked to see the dictionaries I was given. I was given a set of books. Bring it back over here. So I've got a black dot, half the screen's black. So I've got a set of black books here. Now these books were printed, you won't believe this, 260 years ago. And this is Burns Justice. I've got to move it over so I can see it. All right, Burns Justice. Now these books, from memory, 260. I can't do the numbers now because I've got the screen on. I've got too much going in my head. That's 8 years before Captain Cook. I think it was. I did the numbers the other day, but this is the Justice of the Peace and Parish, and this is by Richard R. Burns. It's MDCCLXX, so 1,500,770. So it's 1770. So it's 8 years before Lieutenant Cook sailed into Sydney Harbour. And so I was given the complete set. Now, to get Mr. Burns's New Law Dictionary, just volume 1, there's 2 volumes, is $1,088 Australian. And they were printed in 1793. So these books were bought. These books were bought in for a couple $100 from the UK. So, I mean, to sell them out of the US, probably 2 or 3 times that. So someone wanted to see, so I'm just putting up for Barry Atkins. He wanted to have a look at the books, so I'll send you the link, Barry. The Family Law Court is basically a slave trading house. They defather. Their father is male, female, so they remove the patri, meaning the male heir, the head of the family. They remove the male head of the family, the patri. I won't say ark because ark is a ship, but they remove the patri, and they move the matri. Yeah, you got patriarch and matriarch. So that they remove the male and female, the male only leaving the female, and that exposes the female to a new male. And there's a book by Greg Hallett, Are You My Father? And when he wrote this book, he had special forces come after him. He had an attempt on his life. He was poisoned, and he even confronted one of them, and they admitted, why are we dealing with you? Right. So special forces around the world are sent to other countries to kill other nations. Your army is sent to kill other nations. Their army is sent to kill your nation. That's the whole matrix, right? You're not going to kill your own kind. Even if you don't like them, you're not going to kill them. You're going to kill someone you don't know, a different language, and that's how they work. So I had Sapper Hart, and this guy told me that they operate out of Victoria Barracks. They live in the Hilton Hotel. The guy Hilton is a Jew. The court, Greg Hallett goes through it and tells you that the Chief Justice in New Zealand is a Jew. They got Mossad operating. This guy was Jewish, Sapper Hart. He said, I'm from Northern Ireland, but I'm not Protestant. I said, neither am I. I'm not Catholic either. And he said, I'm Jewish. And I said, that's funny. My mum's a tribe of Judah. and we went and had a beer, and he told me that they're doing wet works in Australia. So look at Harold Holt. He disappeared because he wanted to build a nuclear reactor and build his own missiles. So he disappeared. And while all that was going on, they installed Pine Gap. And there's like 14 US bases here in Australia. And the whole system is to create so much turmoil you won't see what's going on. So Labor and Liberal have effectively basically destroyed manufacturing in Australia. The Japanese are making torpedoes and bombs out of BHP steel because it still had the stamp on the steel when they get hit. They've destroyed our manufacturing. They've destroyed our culture. Even coal means to kill by the mark, but they've destroyed our practices. It's all commercial. The whole fucking English language is commercial. Practice, partner, commercial. She's my partner. And husband, HU is low, S is the force, and band. It's a low force of a band. Yeah? It's a low formal contract. So what they're doing is they've destroyed Australia. Now, currently, China owns 1/3 of Australian farms, and they let 1.5 million Chinese in Australia over the last 6 years, approximately. And you see all the houses going up 10 years ago when I was still working around as a welder, and I was still with my missus and the kids, and I was just thinking, why the fuck are they building all these fucking high-rise buildings for? And they just open the floodgates and let them all in. Now, the Law Society said we're going to increase fucking our productivity by 9%. How do you do that? You create more legal, more constraint. You have to move to live, so they put more restrictions and you keep bouncing off their constraint. Right, so pa-ching, pa-ching, every time you hit one of the little barriers, pa-ching, pa-ching, it's money on their screen. It's a fine, it's this, it's that, it's tariff. And so the word police, P-O-L-I-C, policy, it's policy, it's a homophone, P-O-L-I-C-Y, P-O-L-I-C-E, A-E-I and U are all interchangeable. EFA, A-O-E-F-I-A. How does A-O and E equal E? A-O-E-F-I-E? That's how they create languages, they just change the vowels. So what happened is you've got the same thing in New Zealand happening in Australia. Now, Greg Hallett wrote a book, and then they made attempts on his life. It took him 7 years to get his kids back. Kid meaning goat. His flesh and blood back. And he goes through with definition and a skill for the... You mind? He goes through with a skill and a definition that, most people would hope to reach that level. And he explains the opposition to him getting his... Now, think about it. This guy, they spent $1.2 million on a solicitor stopping him from seeing his kids. Why is that? Where did the $1.2 million come from? Come from the estate. They debit the estate. Kill the trust. You kill their fucking business, right? The entire fucking system is based on fiction and fraud. They are child trafficking. They are slave trading. It's a fucking slave trade. The only way they can fucking have China come down here and destroy Australia is if we finance China. If you're buying Chinese shit, you're financing China to come down and kill your kids and your grandkids. Your heirs to your estate. You are fine. That's why Kevin Rudd's got a Chinese name. Why would Kevin Rudd have a fucking Chinese name? Malcolm Turnbull's son and daughter is married to a Chinese diplomat. Tony Abbott's daughter is married to a Chinese diplomat. They're all married into the Chinese bloodlines. So when China comes down here and fucks everyone, they're set. And I remember seeing a photo. I think it was Abbott's Abbott's daughters or Turnbull's kids married to a Chinese. And he wasn't like your typical Chinese. He was a tall fella, and he had like an almost Western, like he had a bit of European blood in him. And he was like this. He was just looking at people like, he was just looking like, look at all the sheep. Chinese have no soul. I don't care what anyone says. Chinese have no soul. You'll see him grab a frog in the market, and they'll bite the jaw and just rip the frog into 2 pieces, right? And then eat out the lungs. It's just bizarre, Fucking, you see him. String a dog up while it's alive and cut its intestines and lungs out, and the dog's still alive trying to bite the guy, and they're crucified it. And these are the people we're doing business with. And then you look at the Indians, and Indians won't even slaughter a cow, right? So there's diametrically opposed race right there. And so why do we have 2 million Chinese in Australia? Why is Penny Wong saying, oh, it's no longer the White Australia policy? Now, that will resonate with blackfellas, but you got Chinese coming down here, imagine what they're going to do to the blackfellas. Now, I'm against government because government means control and ment is the mind. And they can only form a government when you get 2/3 majority. That means 2/3 of the population are brainwashed. Now, that means all brainwashed because 2/3 voted for one party and 1/3 voted for other. So when they don't achieve government, does that mean we go back to being in their private? You know what I mean? The whole system is set up to each army is set up to kill the public in the other entity. And people talk about the Hague Treaty, and I talk about the Labour Code, and people go, oh, that's American. Well, that was the formation, that were the rules adopted by the Hague. And the Hague is just the kings of Europe making a pact to go and fucking put maps overlay over all the tribes, and then say that tribe is now in this country, and they program it into identifying as Iraqi, but they're Kurdish. They program it into identifying as Australian, but you're tribal, you're Eora, you're Gidable, you're Darug, or whatever, right? You're not fucking Australian. Australian's a corporation. We're not Australian. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. It's fiction, right? They overlay the fiction to go and slaughter you, right? Go and watch a clip I just posted, and it talks about I Am God. It's about the fiction, Genesis. It's Admiralty, right? And Mark Hallett's going to talk right now, and I'm going to let the whole thing play out, and then I'll talk about it at the end.
Transcripts, because they didn't want it known that the police officer was actually a convicted criminal. So I got off on the High Court, got the licence back, and then went back to the District Court 10 minutes before the hearing. The police dropped the case.
Just quickly, that's the first thing they did to me. I was getting run off the road. I was rammed 3 times. Then I was fucking mock rammed by a Jeep Cherokee. And I chased him down. When he rammed me 3 times, smashed my windscreen, threw a bag of something out of the window, smashed my windscreen, and then the cops didn't do nothing. I'm sitting there with a cracked windscreen. Right? Then I appealed the case. They put a stay on the suspension, and then when I posted the clip about the cops in Newcastle, they removed the stay and then they hit me with more fines. But you can't remove a fucking stay. You can't do it, right? Because and then that stresses you out. And then I sent a message into the court. I can't make it, so I have it adjourned, and they just fucking dismissed it. Right, so now I'm going to do it through the post, and I'm going to do a commercial lien, right? Prejudicial, non-judicial. Right, they can't overturn it. Right, and it's called an unrebutted claim. All right, here we go.
So that was just a massive amount of hassle, and when I got poisoned, my custody papers awarding me custody of my child was in the mail, and I'd been battling for 8 years. And so the New Zealand government will actually murder a father to stop them getting custody, because the primary requirement of a pedophile is that the biological father is removed, and they don't want any father getting custody or writing a book on how to get custody and surviving. So there was I got custody papers, are in the mail, I didn't know yet, and then there was a murder attempt, and then loss of licence and $1,500 in fines, which was all absolutely bogus. So the New Zealand government will actually murder a father to stop them getting custody. It is that bad. It's that bad in New Zealand. It is. They do murder, but they murder with poisons on the steering wheel, right? But we can carry on with this, because I started to write a bit of history after this. By that first murder attempt, I'd already published one book, and that was a book called Are You My Father?, which is, it's called Are You My Father? The Family Court and Other Experiments. And that was on the family court, all the statistics and a lot of the stories, the hassle of trying to access a kid. And the family court is basically a crime creation movement, because 90% of all crime in New Zealand is created by fatherless kids. So the judiciary is a crime creation movement. And the district court used to fund the family court, And 90% of all the criminals that go through the district court don't have a father. So the courts are a crime creation movement, as well as doing murders.
Would I be
carry on, sorry.
Would I be correct to infer that you did receive the papers and did take custody of your own son?
Yeah, I do have custody, and you've been living with me ever since.
Well, thank God for that.
Yeah, but check this out. It's great. It's great. The counsel for the child involved that year charged $1.2 million in legal aid fees. He was the second biggest charger in legal aid. So just getting $1.2 million a year, and all that person is doing, it's Paul Gagan, all he's actually doing is stopping fathers getting custody. So he gets $1.2 million for that. And as soon as my case was finished, Paul Gagan nominated himself as a judge. None of the lawyers in Hamilton supported it. And he was accepted as a judge, and now he's destroying lives of families in Rotorua and Taupo. So it's just corruption on corruption on corruption.
My guess must be that books of yours on topics like these must be bestsellers in New Zealand.
New Zealand is a country that censors by ignoring. If you publish something that the judiciary or police or government doesn't like, they will simply ignore it. So that's what they do. So I've written one of the better sociological books on New Zealand. It's about 350 pages. And all accurate, and I got a lot of the statistics from the government and from the family court and even from the police. So, it's undeniably accurate.
What's the title? What's the title of that book, Greg?
Are You My Father?
Is it published? Has it been published yet?
Yeah, it was published in 2002.
Okay, good.
But during the writing of it, during the research of it, the police didn't even want that published. So there was one stage where I had 3 police cars outside the house, dog paddy wagon, and I was sitting inside. It's a 2-story building. I was sitting inside with my lawyer, and I had friends climbing up and down the ladder up the back window, bringing scones and cups of tea and stuff. Meanwhile, the police were outside the door with the loud hailers, and they got a battering ram and bashed the door in. And so the whole door and door frame came off. This is in 1999. And an hour later, I got a rent refund, evicted with a rent refund, And so what happens is that in New Zealand, when you're not a criminal, you get attacked by the police to create a criminal record. And when the police were outside the door with the battering ram, they rang up comms, communications for police, to see what sort of a person I was. And I've got no convictions at all. And they read off a list of 30 convictions, as though 30 things as though they were convictions, and finished it off with, he's a real bad bastard. So then they smashed the door in with a battering ram, and then me and my lawyer sitting next to each other with a video, so we're videoing the whole thing, and they sent in their biggest guy, who was this Maori Polynesian guy, about 6'7" and weighing about 25 stone, and he sees us sitting there calmly drinking cups of tea. He's going, what the? So it's just stitch up after stitch up, because the people in the judiciary are such criminals. They are heroin traffickers, methamphetamine traffickers, they're murderers, they're running the mafia. The judiciary in New Zealand is running the mafia. That, when they find some honest guy who's not compromised, who's actually publishing books, they get really, really scared. It's undermining the establishment, and the establishment is actually crime. The establishment is not peace or lack of crime, it's the opposite.
Fascinating.
It is.
Good God, man. You are living through it.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Now check this out. Like, after the second murder attempt. I've been removed from Auckland by police harassment. Like I had helicopters chasing my car and detectives following, one coming the other way and two others coming up the side streets. Just massive harassment. I had Matrix Security, which is the SIS in New Zealand, following me and parking in the right-of-way next door and eyeing me in the car. So I eventually got kicked out of Auckland, so I lived on Waiheke Island. And I noticed these Mossad doing reconnaissance on me. And one Mossad there was managing placemakers, which is kind of part of Fletcher's. And Hugh Fletcher is married to the Chief Justice, Sharon Elias, and she's Jewish, and she's the highest-ranking Mossad agent in New Zealand. So the Chief Justice of New Zealand, Sharon Elias, is the highest-ranking Mossad agent in New Zealand. So I've got these Mossad following me, and there's three coming in to the supermarket as I'm leaving. There's a 50-year-old guy, he's with a 35-year-old woman, arms around each other, and laughing too much like bad spies. And then the hitman walks in behind them, and he's about 32, he's about 6'2", slightly dark skin, dark hair. And he kneels down in the doorway so I can't get out, and does up his shoelace for about a very long time, like about 30 seconds. And the whole time he's doing up his shoelace, he's looking up at me, sizing up my body size, my weight, getting a good look, you know. So I knew the Mossad were looking at me, and then within 10 days, another Mossad agent was doing reconnaissance on me. He actually had his Jewish name written on the side of the van. And he does a U-turn in front of the house and he gets stuck in the mud, so he gets a tow truck. So I go out and I said to him, okay, can
I can't record the screen on this app, but I'm watching the YouTube clip, and I'll put the link to Greg Hallett, and you can go and see the picture of the van stuck in the mud and everything else.
Hey, can I swear on the program? Can I say what the exact language is?
Sure, yeah, you may.
Yeah, okay, good. So, I go up to this Mossad agent and I say, I know you cunts killed Michael King for Sharon Elias. And he looks at me he's about face to face for about 2 feet away, so it's like a spy off, and he looks at me, right in the eyes, he's checking I'm genuine in that, and then he looks, I would see if I'm fluttering in eyes with any fear or anything, and then he looks down to his left, and that was his kinesthetic memory, and he looks back at me and he goes, why the fuck do you get caught up in this sort of shit?
Not denying anything, mind you.
What's that?
Not denying anything, mind you.
No, but
So that's Greg Hallett, Are You My Father? And he talks about the fact that he went up against the court. He fought them for 7 years. The solicitor charged $1.2 million. I think it was 1 year. Then he goes and nominates himself for a position in the High Court, and they opposed him, but he still managed to get in. He had Mossad come after him. The word judiciary means Jew, D-I means of, C-I means force, and A-R-Y is the mind, judiciary. It's a Judeo-Christian society. That always bugged me. I always wonder what that means. And you put someone before someone, it means you're higher. What's effectively going on is they are murdering. Greg Hallett in his book, he lists all the statistics. 92% of molestation of the little ones are by the stepfather. So the woman goes after another alpha again because she turned him into a beta. So she, with all the social engineering and all new idea and Woman's Day bullshit that's just fucking manifested in her head, she turns her alpha into a beta. And then when she leaves him because he's not what he used to be, because she changed him, then she goes after another alpha, and then he's not connected to the family. He's got no emotional connection. And so when he sees a little girl or a little boy or whatever, he has a sexual attraction to that, and there's no separation because he's not the parent, the flesh and blood. and that's when the molestation happens. And Greg Hallett in his book, Are You My Father, goes through, it's on iBooks, I believe. Someone sent it to me and they gave me the password of Notary. And I don't know whether he's trying to fucking wake me up or send me a message or whatever, but everything in that book happened to me. I was getting run off the road. I was getting fucking my business destroyed. Mercedes-Benz wouldn't fix my Sprinter. Take it to a dealership, and the mechanic would go, oh, wow, that's a knock in the steering and a vibration transmission. Come back at the end of the day, once they put it through the computer, or Joe Gavin, come back, the mechanic had been knocked, I went back there at 2:30, the mechanic had been knocked off, and the manager was there, and he said, oh, we found nothing wrong with it. I said, bullshit, the mechanic said there was something wrong with it as soon as he got in the car and drove it. And he goes, oh, where is he? And he says, oh, he was sent home early. I said, bullshit, where is he? I want to speak to him right now. And so they just wouldn't fix it. They just wouldn't fix it. So they've got to create these trim tabs, right? And my last clip, I talk about how the police are there to protect the corporation state and all its unincorporated persons, the private. And you see when in the Mercedes-Benz clip, the copper almost hugs the fucking dealer principal. They talk about the footy on the weekend. How come he wasn't there? So, and then when they walk up to me, they're all twitchy and agitated like a little scut, some little prick, with a chip on his shoulder. So every time I recorded this clip, the sound would cut off when I start talking about the federal government or the family law court, and I tried doing a few clips and they would just cut out. So essentially what's going on is I had Peter Proctor say to my missus when I was when all this shit started happening, it was happening before the affray, and I had a woman said I was abusive towards her or some shit like that, and she wouldn't swap details, so I just left her. I said, I got your reg, you got mine, you're at fault, I'm putting in a claim against you. So police turned up at the door and they said, oh, she said you said this and did that. So I didn't do shit, right? She wouldn't listen to me, right? I can't talk to someone who won't listen to me, and it wasn't like she has to listen to me. I was listening to her, but she wouldn't listen to me. So and I said, oh, I'm not swerving anymore for your assholes. I'm going to take the hit because I almost rolled my Sprinter, which, combined to replace everything cost me like $300,000 new. And so, and she said, oh, thank you for your candour, but we're going to get you sooner or later. Now, I told Peter Proctor this, Proctor and Associates, and I told him about the police saying they're going to get me, told him about Patrick Crick fabricated his testimony, which he proved in court, and he recanted his entire fucking statement. I drove down there and beat the horn when there was no one around, so there was no affray, and then Patrick comes up and grabs me, and I pushed him off me. I was assaulted, but I was charged for affray. Right? Oh, you stinker. Dog just dropped the bomb. Far out. And so then I told Peter Proctor that the police turned up and told Patrick Crick and his missus, Joe's got a criminal record this big, we want to get him. I've never been fucking convicted in my life. Been in plenty of fights. My old man always told me, don't start it, never not see it coming, and always finish it. Now, the way they put the legal system works, Admiralty Maritime, Lex Mercatoria, right? Legal, leg, right? The way they work is if A attacks B, and A gets injured, but B's more injured, well, then they say, well, that's excessive. And so then the guy who was attacked, or the guy who was attacked, is now deemed to have gone too far. So you can start something, and you come off second best, they'll go, oh, look at you, your injury is the worst. That was excessive. And so they manifest a fictitious fucking reasoning. No, you started it, so you got what you fucking deserved. In the old days, if you went into someone's house, you could shoot them dead. But now you can't do that. You can go to jail because they're making money by having you in jail, by creating the fictitious reasoning. It's even in here. This book is written in 1651. It talks about fictitious reasoning. You look at the words, but you don't try. Okay, that doesn't make sense. You look at what they represent, and then you look at the bigger meaning, the bigger picture. And so what happens is the court is designed to break up the family since 1975, I think it is, so that they can bring in the New World Order. And it's not me saying it. Go to the WEF. They're fucking telling you they will reduce world population by 2050 by 50% by poisoning people with the vaccines. If the vaccines were safe, the legal definition of safe, maritime again, is after exposure. Once exposed, there is no harm after being exposed. That's the legal definition. It's almost verbatim. And that means that if there are side effects, they're not legally safe, right? The British the Bank of England, the City of London, not Great Britain, the City of London, the separate state, the canonical state, its coat of arms is the caduceus. Every medical society has the caduceus. Every medical society works for the bank. That's why the Bible says, thou shalt not partake of pharmakeia. And they dosed me like a fucking chicken. Right? They gave me pork, basically, and I'm a Muslim. You can say that. Right? They broke international fucking law. Then now there's a girl up in Kirsty up at Central Coast says even in their own legislation they've got to observe you for 30 days before they can drug you. I was drugged straight away. Right? And then I had the psychiatrist in fucking Long Bay say you don't have to be mentally ill to be drugged. So you're drugging people or torture people because you believe they're a threat to the state. Because she said if you're a threat to the state, we can do this to you. The state's a fucking association of persons, private persons. That's it. It's a slave trading house. They have a court. That's a slave trading house. You're engaged in fucking slavery. You're engaged in defathering. You're engaged in putting marks against people and calling it criminal. Crime means fucking charge. It's not a tort. A crime is not a tort. A tort is harm, injury, or loss. Right? It's torture. It's where the word comes from. So therefore, I've endured fucking 20 plus years of their torture because they defathered me from the one I married back in my 20s. Right? And the guy who fucking filled out the form for her was her childhood fucking friend from school. She goes, said he's going to go for custody. So he said, write some shit down. That's what they do. Write some shit down. Defather. And they come in like, I'm tucking the bag on. No, he's my fucking flesh and blood. He's my property. I was the nucleating element. The nucleating part of the seed is the germ, right? That's why they create shit like margarine. Mar is the harm and germ. Mar the germ. Margarine sends you blind. My sister's a chemist and she said she has to, I said, how do you make margarine? She goes, I don't know. I've got to look it up. It's that complex. It's fucking poison. Right? They're fucking poisoning you with their shit. The sole goal of a corporation is to kill off the naturals, the fucking Rh positives. Right? The ones who are connected to the primatic blood. Right? The whole fucking system is designed to wipe out the population based on scripture. I gave it away. I had a Bible here, KJV. And this is what they do. I had Peter Proctor say when I went in for a fray, I said, I was on the floor, I was working long hours, and I was just like I was just black and white, work, look after family, fucking have a beer, watch the footy, or watch the Tour de France or whatever fuck. And I went in there and I said, I pushed the fat fuck off me, and he was like pushing a bowl of Jello. Now Peter Proctor's a fat, malignant fucking piece of shit. Right? I'll be surprised if he's alive right now. You got to look like a walking heart attack. And what happened was he didn't follow instructions. He didn't go after Inspector O'Hagan. He didn't go after Senior Constable Hancook. The other witness was, alleged witness was, now Patrick Quick fucked off to Brisbane shortly after because there was kids giving each other a head job under the age of 13, giving each other a head job in his fucking house. I told this to police at Brisbane Water. They just walked away. I kid you not. They didn't even blink. A male and a female. They just walked away when I told them. They didn't want to fucking know because he's a fire inspector, right? So he's looked after, right? Then Patrick Quick was throwing his own fucking parties, and they would tackle each other at Whitey's house across the road. He was 100 years old, right? And they had to put up a fence to try and keep them out. These are the assholes, right? And then Leanne Judge, whatever she calls herself now, I stopped the guy from road rage and a neighbour, and then I grabbed the keys off the car and that, and he punched me and I just held him off, and then police turned up and said, lucky we don't arrest you for kidnapping. And then Leanne, standing in front of the cops, said, I've got a mate who's a high-ranking police officer. He'll sort him out. Now, if Leanne can get someone to sort someone out for them, then she's willing to do favours. Right? Now, I told Peter Proctor all this. Even had CCTV footage of Leanne faking fucking her injuries and everything else. And being abusive and parking cars out the front of the driveway, so you can't, because it's a steep driveway, you've got to go straight out and then turn. You can't go at an angle because the wheels, you'll just be on your diagonals, you lose traction. All this kind of shit. And so Peter Proctor ignored the police coercing the witnesses, ignored Inspector O'Hagan threatening me at a previous occasion, so we're going to get you. The only way you can get me is if you fucking falsify something, because I don't harm anyone, harm, injury, loss. And so then there was another time they turned up for another woman. I said, look, fucking, I gave her my details, and she goes, well, she said you didn't give it. I said, I fucking did. I wrote them down on paper for both of us, and then handed it to her. I said, why don't you just give them my details? Why are you coming here harassing me? So that they have to turn up to the house. They have to engage with. They want to create the controversy. And so Peter Proctor knew about the 2 times the threat. Leanne fucking saying she can get Hancook to fucking take care of people. You've got the senior detective for Brisbane Water for the drug squad. He's doing 10 years. That was about 5 years ago for running the drugs. You've got the female inspector who's supposed to be investigating the bikies on the Central Coast in a relationship in Bali, sucking his cock. You've got the mayor of Brisbane Water engaged in pedophilia. They're trying to get him removed. Right? The mayor of fucking Gosford engaged in pedophilia. It was in the fucking news. This is what's going on. They are a child fucking ring. They are a defathering ring. This is the Family Law Court. Now, the Family Law Court lists Australia as Norfolk Island. So the Family Law Court's jurisdiction is Australia, and it's Norfolk Island. The Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia in 1901 clearly states includes Norfolk Island, Torres Strait Island, and Cocos Keeling Islands, and no other external territory. They don't have jurisdiction on tribal land. What they did was they tricked you into believing you were there, and you signed up to their birth certificate system, right? And then you identify as the residentifying entity, right? The Family Law Court is defathering. Now, when I went in to see Peter Proctor, I fucked up and I used the word fat bastard, right? So he took offence to that straight away. And I explained everything, and then he said, I want to speak to Anna. And so Anna leaves, and one thing happened before that, I'll finish this. So I leave, and then Anna stays there, and then I'm waiting down the car it took about 25 minutes. And that's when he said, you need to leave him. He didn't say why, he wouldn't say why. He said, you need to leave him. Never raised my hand to her, never raised my hand to my kids. Don't do drugs, not into anything bad, never robbed a bank. It's because I'm woke, not awake, woke. Right? Now, before that was said, during the affray, they basically said, the copper said to Anna, if you stay with him, your son's going to become a criminal. So that was the second threat. So I was getting threatened, then they went up, then they go after the woman, then they threatened her. And then when she said, this is what she said to me, she said, things were tense and there was lots of stress over money. I was making money coming out of pockets. It's falling in pockets. And then she threatened the kids. I said, what are you doing? She's sitting over in a seat about a metre and a half away. And she gets up, stands up. She's like within arm's reach of me. And she starts going off me. She's got my daughter in her arms. She's going nuts. I said, is anything that fucking head of yours? And she hits my hand, right? And then I tapped her. I said, fucking, nothing in that fucking head. Now, the cops turn up and goes, oh, that's assault. I said, no, she fucking assaulted me. She got up and got in my face. I didn't get anywhere near her. And so so I went to court. And I said to the magistrate, fucking, if I don't agree with her and don't plead guilty, I'm going to she's going to go for custody and I'm going to lose everything. He says, that's not how it works. And then he said, I said, well, everything she's saying is bullshit. He goes, so you don't agree with the facts? I said, no. And then he finds me guilty anyway. Right? And then I tried to, when I appealed it in the district court, I applied through Penrith Courthouse to subpoena Senior Inspector O'Hagan to get her there and they wouldn't allow it. The register wouldn't let it. He said, you need to go for the magistrate if you don't for couple appeal to the magistrate. But the magistrate's not a judicial officer. Who are these people stopping you from remedy? Because there is no law as you think. L is a ship, A is the alpha, and W is the water. It's maritime, right? There's no law. There's no equity. There's no well, technically there's no justice because justice means to bind, and bind is contract. There's no meeting of the minds. There's just adhesion contracts. These are the terms and conditions accepted, or fuck off. Well, we're the living. We stand on the ground. You stand on the land. That's your ship. Get back to fucking sea. The whole thing is fiction. The whole fucking thing is fiction. All right? Their mer is the sea, immerse, submerse, and chant. It's magic. It's fucking magic, right? They force you. If you don't identify as our subject matter fiction, then you must be mentally fucking insane. That's fucking murder. That if you don't identify as their fiction creation, it's fucking insane. It's a form of insanity. It's a psychosis. It's the fat kid in the room going, mine, 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 mine. That's all it is. There's like a delayed reaction on the screen, so when I'm talking, it's just like a few seconds, milliseconds after. So just and the hands, it's all, you know, it's not a smooth movement. It might be a smooth movement on the clip, but what's playing back to me is weird. So effectively, what's going on is the family law court is defathering. Now, Greg Hallett, you got to get his book. If anyone can find a PDF, because it's all statistics at the back end of the book. It's all statistics. What he said that happens to him virtually happened to me verbatim. Now they got to discredit you. They got to say, look where it's got you. They got to take your ability to travel. All these fucking things. Now they talk about deprivation of liberty. Liberty's on the fucking sea, right? It's on the ship. That's why the Statue of Liberty is not on the fucking ground. It's not on the land. It's on an island. Right? And it's on a star fort, by the way, if you have a look at it. Right? The whole fucking system, right? From Senior Constable Jennifer Stacey to Inspector O'Hagan to Constable Hancook to Senior Constable Riggs. When I spoke to Natasha from Gladicis Lawyers, she said that there have been more complaints about Senior Constable Riggs than in 1 year in his time as a copper than the entire history of Brisbane Water Police. And he'd only just come out of the army or something. He'd been a copper for 1 or 2 years or something like that, or a couple of years. And so she was saying he's had more complaints about assaults, people being bashed by him, than anyone else. Now, they said I was trespassing. I wasn't trespassing. And then the court, so I wasn't trespassing, so the arrest was illegal. You can't say I'm resisting arrest when you had no cause to arrest me. So I proved that was not trespassing, but they still found me guilty of resisting arrest, even though he was trying to push me backwards down 2 flights of stairs. Now, all this evidence, the clips that I posted, have been taken off my previous channel was taken out because I started naming the people who are trying to kill me, and they said it was hate speech and breach of privacy. But the news can fucking do. The news can show you pictures in the house, his name, where he lives, his business, fucking everything. But I was showing their phone numbers and playing the voice recording. This is what the police are into. That's why they're watching my clips and anything. Oh yeah, look, that's terrorism. Fuck yeah, stick him in jail for you. They'll terrorise him. It doesn't scare me at all. Right? It's just another fucking speed hump. Once I'm over the speed hump, back to normal. Right? Anyway, so that's pretty much it. That's Greg Hallett telling you about the practice of the family law court in New Zealand. It's funny. How is it another country has a court exactly the same name, came in at exactly the same time? That's fuck these lawyers. They must be like that fucking 100th monkey. You know, they're all linked, and whenever one comes up in the idea, they all do it. No, it's an international plan. Look up the ICAP. It's an international policing association, and they print an international rule for domestic violence and everything else. Well, hang on. I thought New South Wales is fucking Australia separate from other countries. Why is there an international body called the IACP or the ICAP making rules up how police are supposed to deal with domestic violence? Domestic violence is it's a socially engineered construct. There's only harm, injury and loss. There's only harm, injury and loss. Right? Crime doesn't exist. It's an overlay of maritime to commercialise and turn you into a stock and a trading entity. The birth certificate intimates a security, right? Which is it's a tradable entity. It's a financial fucking instrument, right? It's called a QSIP, Council on Uniform Securities Identification Procedure, and it's called a CIN, CINS, QSIP International Numbering System, right? So you ask for forgiveness of sins, right? The whole fucking system. Forgiveness of sins. Forgive means future give. Keep giving me sin. Keep giving me debt. It's a fucking chant. Our Father, who art in heaven, thy kingdom come. King is a corporation in English law. Kingdom, corporation, dominion, come is the mind. You're letting corporations take your land off the blacks, take your lands off the whites, take your fucking your hereditaments with an overlay of their fiction, and it's the bar. Right, the next clip, I'm going to put I can't think of a name. Karen Hootis. Now, Karen Hootis was a lawyer for the World Bank for like 20 years, and she discovered that there is no law. She's basically explained that the bank has created these courts, and it's something called state capture. I'll do a clip on that as well. It's called state capture, right? And so the government of Australia, the private land corporation registered to America, everything's created by the government of Australia. So you now come under a uniform commercial code and come under the District of Columbia. Right, that's why you have the district court in Australia, the district attorney in America, the district court, the prosecutor, the whole. It's all district, and district is a feudal land of the king. Right, it's not me making it up. Right? These are some old dictionaries we're finding all these meanings in. Right, you look up district today. Oh, it's an area. No, it's the feudal lord of the king. Anyway, hopefully this come through right.